Recently, we had a law go into effect that said you cannot do what while you were driving?
Texting.
Text. And there's a good reason for that, because it's dangerous. Distracted driving can be a life or death matter. Many of us may have texted while we were driving and think perhaps that we can get away with it. And maybe you do until that one time when the pedestrian walks out that you did not see coming, or the highway traffic stops when you're going 65 miles an hour as you're checking that message. And then that distraction can result in serious injury or even death. What other things can distract us while we are driving? Children, yes. They're in their back seat fighting and you're trying to keep an eye on the road. What else? Eating while you're driving, right? That burrito ends up part of it in your lap, and now you're trying to figure out how to steer and get that cleaned up. Any teenage distractions while driving? The radio, there we go. Or other teenage friends in the vehicle that have their own opinions about what is important just now instead of paying attention to the road. I once was driving out of my neighborhood in Tampa, and someone was driving into the neighborhood brushing their teeth. Now, brushing your teeth may not seem like a super big distraction. Still have a hand on the wheel, still paying attention to the road, but all it takes is a little bit of slobber, and all of a sudden you're not watching anymore, and you're distracted. So distracted driving can be life or death. Today, Jesus comes to visit Mary and Martha, and we hear that she is distracted, and it could be that distracted living also is the life or death thing. Now, as the story unfolds, we are told that she is distracted, and then Jesus says, Mary or Martha, you are worried and distracted about many things. Now, I have to tell you, I have long heard this story and just assumed that what Martha was working on was the work of being a hostess. She's getting some food ready for Jesus, maybe she's getting some water ready, maybe she's just tidying up a bit. But the words here for distracted, it's actually two different words in Greek. Jesus says you are worried and distracted. The first word, when sort of the narrator of the story says that she was distracted, has the sense of your attention being taken from thing to thing to thing to thing until you feel overburdened. So you've got this idea of being just overburdened, while Jesus also says she is distracted by many things. And so I'm starting to think that this is not just about Martha being a hostess, because that's a few things, but that she is overburdened by all of what is going on in her life, and that her attention just can't be gotten away from all of those things that she knows she needs to get done. And so that she is overburdened not just by Jesus showing up, but Jesus showing up and adding to an already long list of things that she feels like she needs to do. And I think need is the operative word there. When we are driving and your phone dings and you read that message, it's because you feel like you need to, probably. You need to check and see if it's important. Or maybe you send a text because you need to let somebody know that you're going to be late for a meeting. The guy that was driving into my neighborhood clearly needed to get his teeth brushed before he got where he was going, because you can't show up without that being done. And that idea of needing to get things done lands in a space of scarcity thinking, or not feeling whole. Right? If we don't get that done, then things are not complete. So I have to get that message sent, or I'm going to live in this space of not having gotten something done that should have gotten done. And so as Martha is busy about the house, I wonder if she was not thinking of all the things that she needed to do. I need to get this food on the table so our guests have something to eat. I need to get this water in there so they have something to drink. I need to tidy this up. I need to get the laundry done. I need to go check in with the neighbor because I told them I was going to do something for them and I didn't get it done yet. And I need to get this other thing done or I'm not going to be able to get paid this week so that we can eat. And I need to send one more email because if we don't get that done today, then it's going to be late. And I need to get those bills paid because it's almost the 15th of the month. And I need to schedule that meeting and I need to call the doctor and I need. And she's caught up in this place where everything is something that needs to get done and she feels overburdened by it. And when we land in that place, not only do we feel like things are not wholly done, but we can then begin to think that we are not whole. Because we're not getting it all done. And so we think, well, I don't have enough energy and I don't have enough time and I'm not good enough or I can't get it all done by myself. and it begins to turn in on ourselves, and we maybe don't feel like we are worthy or whole human beings that God has gifted to live in the world. And so that scarcity thinking and that need-based thinking can drive us into places where we really begin to struggle with ourselves. Now, I'm guessing most of us have been caught in that need to do stuff. When you are in that place, are you your best self? Do you interact well with everyone else? Not all the time, right? That's when you can get short and snippy. And so it's no wonder that Martha, who is needing to do stuff, turns and looks at Jesus and says, "Make Mary help me." Because when you are stuck in that cycle of need and seeing that you are not enough, it is easy then to see the deficits in other people as well. Because if those other people would carry some load, then maybe you wouldn't have to be stuck in this place. And it is easy for us to be there as people. We can get into that place of distraction and overburden and looking at other people and wishing that they would do more. And then we can get judgmental and we can get mean and we can get nasty. And it is a life or death thing. Texting while driving is life or death. And just like you can get away with it sometimes, you can get away with being busy all the time, but that doesn't mean it's not life and death. Does that cycle of getting stuck and feeling like we need to get things done sometimes come at the cost of relationship? Does it come sometimes at the cost of our own health and physical stress? It does, right? Which means this is life and death. It may just not feel as urgent as all of the urgent things that we feel like we need to get done. Are all of those things important? Sometimes, but not all the time. So as Martha is needing to get all these things done, she is caught in this space. She's worried about Mary not helping her. And Jesus says to her, "You only need one thing." One thing. What does she need? Jesus. What Mary did was sit down at Jesus' feet. So in the midst of Martha's feeling overburdened, Jesus says, you just need one thing. One thing. And when all of your need is met, that's when you feel full and whole. What Jesus is telling Martha is, all you need is me. I fill you up. I make you whole. And all of the rest of that work doesn't go away. Jesus is not saying work is unimportant. Work has to get done. We got all kinds of new siding up on our building now. That took work. It took people being here in the heat of the day, taking down the old stuff and putting the new stuff up. But before we got to that point, it took somebody figuring out the math of do we have the money to pay for it? And then figuring out some other math as to how quickly do we do that. And then we had to call contractors and get bids and evaluate all of that, walk around the building with them. Whole bunch of work goes into getting that done. And it's necessary because when we took the old siding off, we found out that there was wood rot under the windows. And the front walk had rotten wood and holes that needed to be replaced. That's what's happening when you don't do work, right? Is things can begin to fail. So work is important. But what Jesus is telling Martha is work is not the only thing. And the one thing you need is me. You just need me. And that then changes the way you go into the rest of the work. The story does not tell us that Jesus is moving in permanently and now all they have to do is take care of Jesus. He's only coming for a visit. And for just a short time, Mary sits at his feet. It doesn't mean she stops working and never does any work. It means that for a moment she dwells in the presence of Jesus. And he looks at Martha and says, that's all you need. You just need to dwell in my presence. I'm the only thing you need. And this is not a new story. In the beginning, how long did it take God to create everything?
6 days.
6 days, and on the seventh day? Rest. And then we get to the story of Exodus, and we get the commandments. And the commandments, the third one says, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Built into our creation as human beings is the need to rest. Now, Martin Luther talks about the third commandment in the Large Catechism. And when he talks about it, he says that we don't make the Sabbath holy. It's already holy. It is already set apart. It was made holy for us. And that when we live in the space of Sabbath, we get to experience the holiness of it. And he says that Sabbath has two purposes. One is literal physical rest. We do have to rest from work. You can't just work. If you've ever worked like every day for a long period of time, how productive are you as you keep going in that? Not very. Like, we have this need as human beings for rest. But the second thing Luther says is that it's not just about being lazy. Yes, you need physical rest. Anybody can be lazy. He says the purpose of the Sabbath is to dwell in God's Word. It is to pray and worship and be shaped by God's Word so that when you go back out to your work, you have a clear and clean heart and mind. He actually talks about the Sabbath as continually cleaning our hearts and our minds. So the Sabbath has this dual purpose of physical rest, but dwelling in God's Word. And when we dwell in God's Word, it shapes us to go back out into the world differently. Now Luther would say that we should take some of that time to dwell with God each and every day. But then he also says, we're not very good at that, so let's at least take a day together and do it. To come and gather in worship. And so when we gather in this place like we are right now, we are doing exactly what the commandment says, right? Remembering the Sabbath and keeping it holy. We are gathered around these waters that clean us and around this table that feeds us. And Jesus would say, we only need one thing. And when we come in this place, we get to get filled up with that one thing. And for at least this little while, we experience that abundance of Jesus. And it takes away that scarcity thinking. And then we can go back out into our day in a different place. Our assistant to the bishop a while back invited us into a journey of contemplative prayer, which means to sit twice a day, ideally for 20 minutes, just breathing in silence and trying to clear our minds of busyness. And that's a very hard thing to do. And I will tell you, honestly, I have been trying to do this twice a day now for many months, and there are many days where I have other things I feel like I need to do. I come into this place and I think I should go pray and sit and be, or I need to send an email and get that meeting scheduled, and this person asked me for that, I haven't gotten it to them yet, and then all of that goes again. Now, if I take that time to pray, I tend to find out that all of the things still get done. And not only that, but when I come out of that time of prayer, I feel at peace, and my heart and mind is in a different place, and I come at that very same work. The work didn't go away, but I come at it in a different way. Is that because I did a really good job praying? No. It's because I got filled up by Jesus, which is the work that He does in us in this gift of Sabbath that we have. There's a book that a group of us have been reading called The Cloud of Unknowing. It is written by a 14th century mystic about contemplative prayer. And the author uses the Mary and Martha story to talk about the way contemplative people get treated. And even in the 14th century, the author says that those who sit and contemplate get criticized by their family and friends for being lazy and not doing anything. The tricky part of it is, when we try to sit in this place, who is it that's most likely to criticize us? Ourselves. Our family and friends will do that, our neighbors will do that. Martha's doing it all on her own. She's getting all wrapped up in the busyness, and she is overwhelmed by all of it. And she probably is in a space of feeling like she's not enough, and then she looks at Mary and takes that out on her. The gift of Sabbath is a gift of life. Jesus' death and resurrection is a gift of life. When we are in places of distracted living, we are caught up in the things of that. It's not good for our relationships, and it's not good for our health. It's not good for us as whole people. But Jesus gives us a gift of life, and that gift of resurrection is for us to live in that wholeness of the one thing we need, which is Jesus. So as this story unfolds for us, it's easy to look at Martha, especially if you were the sibling that did all the work sometimes, right? You can look at Martha and go, yep, that was me. But it's easy to look at Martha and maybe be a little bit critical of her busyness when Jesus is right there. But perhaps what we ought to do is look at her with some compassion and understand that we all can get overwhelmed. That Jesus died and rose to make us whole, and that gift of Sabbath is there to clean our hearts and minds so that we can go out into the world and free people. Because that's what Jesus does. When He is the one that fills us up, He frees us from that cycle of need, and busyness and overburden. He frees us from that to live differently. And in our practice of Sabbath, we get filled up so that other people can be free as well and know the love of God as they go. Amen.